Many years ago there was an exclusive boarding school in England which had a scout troop. The leader of the scout troop was a teacher, and once a month, on weekends, he took the scouts on a hike. There was one boy in the scout troop who was very naughty and unruly. His name was Stanley Jenkins, and he was always on edge. No matter how many times the teacher scolded him, he never listened. One weekend, the scouts went hiking in the English countryside. They got permission to set up camp on farmland. The place was on the crest of a hill overlooking a deep valley. The teacher warned the boys not to wander alone and told them that under no circumstances should they go down into the valley. While the teacher and other scouts pitched tents, Stanley Jenkins and his friends sat on the grass. They were too lazy to help set up camp. Instead, they went in search of some dirty trick that they could arrange. Looking intently into the valley, Stanley Jenkins noticed a field surrounded by a barbed wire fence. There was an old stone well in one corner of the field. The field looked as if it had never been used, and it was overgrown with weeds and blackberries. And then they saw the farmer who owned this land, who was walking with his dog. Stanley Jenkins waved to him as he passed, and the farmer stopped to talk. "And what's down there in the field?" Stanley Jenkins asked. "The one with the well inside. It's a wishing well," the farmer replied. "But you can't go down there. I hope your teacher told you that." "Meaning well?" Stanley Jenkins said. "Are you saying that if you throw some money into a well, you can make a wish?" The farmer smiled grimly. "I don't know," he said, "that's what it's called, but no one comes close to the wishing well here. In all the years that I have lived here, I have never set foot on this field." "What's wrong with him?" Stanley Jenkins asked. "All I know is that cows and sheep stay away from him. Even my old dog wouldn't go through that field, and neither would you guys if you have brains. They say there are ghosts there." "Haunted?" Stanley Judkins chuckled. "Stalking by who?" "3 women and 1 man," the farmer replied seriously. "Who are they?" Stanley Jenkins asked. "All this happened before me," said the farmer, "but I was told that they died in the well, or were found dead in it. I saw them once. It was dusk, and I was standing on this very ridge. My old dog saw them too. They came out of the bushes and crawled around, 4 of them, just black rags and white bones. I thought I could hear their bones rattling as they moved. I couldn't see their faces, all I could see were their teeth." The boys gasped together. Stanley Jenkins chuckled. "And then what happened?" He asked. "I don't know," the farmer replied. My old dog ran away, and I ran after her. So take my advice, boys. Stay away from this wishing well if you know what's good for you." With these words, the farmer raised his hat and left. The boys watched him go. "What nonsense," Stanley Jenkins said. "I don't believe a single word." Close quote. The next evening, the teacher gathered the scouts and counted the votes. He noticed that one of the boys had disappeared. After a roll call, he found out that the missing boy was Stanley Jenkins. None of the other scouts seemed to have any idea where he was. Then one boy said, "Maybe he went down to the wishing well, sir," he suggested. The teacher's face paled. "The wishing well?" he gasped. "But you were all given strict instructions not to go down there." The scouts followed the teacher as he climbed to the top of the ridge and looked down into the valley. The light was fading, it was getting cold, but there was not the slightest breath of wind in the air. "Can anyone see him?" the teacher asked. "Here he is," said one of the boys, climbing over a barbed wire fence. "Do you see him?" "Yes, that's him," said the other boy. "I recognize his sweater. Now he's heading for the wishing well." "That little idiot," the teacher growled. At that moment, one of the boys screamed shrilly and covered his eyes with his hands. "What is that black thing on the path?" Another boy shouted. Crawling on all 4s. "It's a woman." "Oh my God. Don't let me look at her." Stop it," the teacher said loudly. "Pull yourself together. I'm going down there. Hancock and Fartleby, run to the farmer's house and call for help. And you guys stay here and don't move." The teacher ran away, leaving the boys alone on the crest of the hill, looking at the field below. To their horror, they saw another black figure emerge from the bushes. Then another and another. They saw Stanley Jenkins heading for the wishing well. He didn't seem to notice the black figures approaching him, shuffling forward with outstretched hands. The boys started shouting as loud as they could, trying to warn him. As Stanley Jenkins approached the wishing well, he seemed to hear their screams. Suddenly he stopped and turned around. Then he let out a scream more piercing and terrible than any of the boys on the ridge, but it was too late. The black figures approached him until he was surrounded on all sides. Then they attacked each other. The boys stared in horrified silence at what was happening below. They could barely breathe as they watched this terrible struggle. The hood of one of the figures fell back, revealing a white skull with long strands of hair. Their gnarled bony fingers tore at Stanley Jenkins, and soon his terrible screams stopped. The boys noticed their teacher running towards the field. He climbed over the barbed wire fence, but then stopped and did not move again. The farmer arrived with several policemen. The boys were pointing at the field below and shouting, "They've got him! They've got him. Dash over and over again. The police ran down into the valley. The headmaster came and all the boys were taken back to school. Some of them were so traumatized that they later left the school. The teacher stayed there with the police all night. The next morning at dawn, they found what was left of Stanley Jenkins at the bottom of the wishing well. He was torn to pieces. His parents came to collect the remains. The farmer put up another barbed wire fence surrounding the field and installed large signs with the words "dangerous" and "do not approach" written in large red letters. Locals say that 5 ghostly black figures are now wandering in the field: 3 women, a man and a little boy.